How did you feel the first time you saw your partner naked? Just really, really happy. She hadn't really trusted anyone like that before, and it meant a lot to me that she felt comfortable enough and trusted me enough to do that. As a kid, she was molested by the neighbor. She never really opened up to anyone literally and figuratively before me. She felt comfortable and had that safe space with me. As an introvert growing up without any actual friends, I felt really special. 7 years down the line, she cheats on me with her boss. Life can really lift you up to cloud 9 and throw you back on the ground in a blink of an eye. Just because you think your body is a wreck doesn't mean others do. As far as I can say, MILF ends at mom plus hot. Nothing to do with looking any specific way, certainly not looking like they haven't had kids, though that is appealing for some. What makes someone hot to someone else is all a matter of perspective. They basically said, you're a mother and you're hot. There's no but. It's not you're a mom, but you're still hot. It's you're a mom and you're hot. Am I making sense? It's a compliment. They complimented you. They acknowledged your motherhood and said you were hot and sexy at the same time. That's it. In the original context of the movie, it originated from American Pie. It's a mother of someone your peer's age. In the movie, it was a high school senior's mother, so in their mid-40s. However, since then, it's lost all its meaning, and people use it as basically anyone that's a mom. But if you see this 22-year-old that's a mom and call her a MILF, the whole point of the term has lost its meaning. They say the world isn't ready for a rock and roll cop. No one wants their state monopoly on violence to be mixed with celebrity worship. They claim to know it would be dangerous for detectives to rise to the ranks of demigods and have sexual encounters with barely legal cover girls. It would be insane, they say. To all this you say, off and die. In a cool voice, you people have no idea how good these cops are gonna get. They're gonna crack 20 cases a day. In the future, cops will be like astrophysicists, or prime ministers, or prophets, and you're the first one. I really gotta get into that game, but for the life of me, just get so bored when I try. It's very good, but not for everyone. Its writing style is on the edge of pedantic, and I love it, but you do need a proper bull buffer for it. Let me know if you want any tips for getting into it though. And that same vein, I've tried playing Pathologic to several times, but get too stressed out. How TF am I supposed to defend myself against a town set on killing me while I'm dying? Don't even have a gun, and 2 punches mean I die. I've contented myself with hours of video essays. I've only played the original Pathologic, and I love that game so much. I still think about it, and sometimes I even have dreams about it, but I can't bring myself to finish it. It is just too panic-inducing to constantly be in an impossible race against time, with every small mistake stacking up against you, and usually your only options being dying immediately or dying faster. Eventually, just couldn't take the stress of going into plague houses or robbing terrified families anymore. But I still think about all those clone villagers often. Rip to all the staring women, skipping children, old guys with knitted hats and bald shopkeepers I couldn't save. It's from the game Disco Elysium, where you play as a police officer trying to solve a lynching with your police partner, Kim Kitsuragi. You start the game after having taken copious amounts of drugs and alcohol, resulting in memory loss and voices in your head, which function as skills. One of these voices is Shivers, which gives you insight into the city. It also tells you to take off your clothes while interviewing a witness to feel the wind better. Absolutely amazed. It was our second time being intimate. The first, we were out of control wild for each other and things moved fast. The second time she said, I want to be naked with you. I know now she really likes the skin-to-skin contact, and she checks all the boxes. I couldn't have come up with something better if I could custom order her. 13 years later, still lucky to have her. This is how I feel about my boyfriend. We've been together for years, and I still look at him and think, how did I possibly end up with everything I've ever wanted? I've told him on many occasions that if I'd designed a boyfriend, he would have come out this way, but I don't think he fully believes me, but I'll keep telling him for the rest of my life and beyond if I can. Even in our relatively short time together, we've both changed quite a bit. Mostly for the better, although we both gained a fair bit of weight. However, over the last 6 months or so we've both put more effort into eating better, and we go to the gym 3 times a week together. Separately, we have goals of how we want to look, but our joint goal is to be healthier so we can have as many happy years as possible. I'm actually welling up typing this as it's hit me that before we met, we both struggled with thoughts like, what's the point of living? But now, finally see the point in growing old. Funny. First time me and my wife and I were also intimate without going all the way. We were both drunk, and I had gone down on her for what seemed like eternity and left her half dressed. Stopped, looked up, and she then in a quivering voice asked if we should do it. We barely were starting out, and as much as my soldier wanted to, I didn't want our first time in the back of my Jeep. Worst blue balls of my life. But seeing her naked the first time in a more appropriate setting, my room at my parents' house was way better, and we have been together ever since. 11 years and a baby now. This is lovely. Been with my husband 16 years, and feel exactly the same. We were friends for 2 years before we got together. He told me he was in love with me about a year before we got together. I was still with my ex and happy at the time. I told him that I didn't see him that way because I've never been able to fall for other men when I'm in a relationship. That was that, until I was single and we were spending more time together, and I realized I loved him too. Then things moved really fast. He still talks now about the first time I got naked in front of him and how he couldn't believe it was actually happening. Apparently it made a good impression anyway. 16 years on, he's still always overjoyed to see me naked, and vice versa obviously. I'm now a bit nervous. I'm with someone whose naked body I didn't find attractive at first. I was attracted to him being incredibly funny and smart and interesting, having warm eyes and a coolness that got to me. I love him and find him attractive now, but back then it was more like, I feel awful for this reading all your comments. That's totally normal. This is usually how the first time goes for me too. Bodies are kinda funny looking. Sex is kinda nerve-wracking. I need a few rounds to really appreciate the whole experience. If I like someone because they're funny, and we have chemistry, they might not be my ideal type physically, and I might not be theirs, but pretty soon, we drive each other wild. If I'm instantly head over heels for someone physically, they're probably bad news lol. And run. Well, mostly the last bit. I think you can be attracted to their body and the person. But if I'm attracted to someone physically, I take it more slowly to make sure I'm not overly distracted. I've also been intensely drawn to 2 guys who didn't have the most conventionally attractive bodies. Dad bod, hairy back, balding etc. in their words. I was very hot for both of them and never thought twice about their bods. It was the whole package to me. But they were kinda insecure about it. Lots of gray in these dynamics. I feel this too. Currently single, but most of the guys I've dated in the past decade, I've just thought and felt a bit disappointed inside. I had a thing with a really attractive person earlier in the year, and I had a bit of a whoa moment with him. But then, it was his personality that left me feeling all and it turns out that's decidedly worse. It obviously didn't work out. Ultimately, I'm still going to rank personality over looks, but I'm kinda jealous that everyone is out there feeling all excited about their partner's hot bods. I think I'm on the A spectrum, or gray sexual, or sapiosexual even, so pretty much never select for looks, but that hot guy shook my conviction in my identity. I also just feel so guilty when my partners are so into my body, and I'm not into theirs. Although I'm pretty sure I hide it well, and feelings never get hurt. I wish you well in your relationship. I would definitely stay with an unattractive partner if everything else aligned, for what that's worth. I've had moments like that too. With my most recent ex, his body type, lean or thin, but with broad shoulders, was totally my cup of tea, but the guy was about 40 pounds underweight at the time. He looked a little like MGK, which is a positive for me, but also a little like a Holocaust victim. Not a positive for me. A very confusing experience. Turns out, he had quit coke much more recently than he had told me. He put the weight on really quickly once I started cooking for him. Dude's okay now, at least. For me, it was the first time I ever saw or handled a penis, and I was super nervous. I thought it looked weird and gross, and I didn't actually want to touch it very much. Don't worry, I was absolutely consenting to the situation. We talked about it ahead of time, etc. I was just nervous. He was great, and didn't pressure me at all. Now, years and years later, his body is just a body. I find him attractive, but it's so normal to me. It's just a comfortable, intimate day-to-day thing. Nothing scary at all. But yeah, the first time I definitely fixated on the bad, just because of my nerves. When I was initially dating my wife, we hadn't done anything, mostly because it was long distance, and we hadn't been dating for very long before I had to deploy overseas. Kept in touch via email, phone, and Skype. This was before FaceTime and Zoom. Long story short, sexual tension was insane by the time I got home after 9 months. She flew to where I was, we got a hotel room, and that was the first thing we did the instant we got through the door of the room. I had been around nothing but dudes for 9 months. She played soccer in college and was extremely fit and toned. The anticipation and excitement was overwhelming. When she dropped her clothes, I could not believe it. I struck at her sexiness, just frozen, soaking it all in for a moment before she pushed me onto the bed. A memory I cherish and will never let go. I had a crush on him forever. Literally since the moment I met him, then for a few years as co-workers or friends. Even after we started dating, we didn't get sleep together for a while. I really like hairy guys who are on the heavier side, like stocky dad bod, hairy belly. No exaggeration, if I could create my perfect naked man on Sims, that is him. I love every single part of this man's body. He's my very specific idea of perfection. He is the hottest tamale of my life. He drives me crazy. Now, he's my husband and we have 2 kids. I felt like, damn, he was, and is without a doubt the nicest, most gentle man ever. Took his clothes off, and he was shy, but literally has the most perfect body I've ever seen. Like the statues from back in the day. Can't think of lol, it was so sweet. Because he felt nervous, even though he was so perfect. 5 years later, and after he spends all day outside building houses, comes up and keeps working on our house. He's completely remolding the whole thing himself. Sexy as in its own way. But the man comes upstairs sweaty and tired, and I just think, holy, you're so hot. He still gets shy about it, and I just think, man, I'm so lucky. Even better, I'm a stay-at-home mom to 2 young toddlers a year apart, and there are days I'm in my robe all day. It's cold and easy. When he comes up, he always tells me not only how great I'm doing, even stuff, especially if the house is crazy and everyone is telling, because that means fun, but that I'm so sexy every with my messy hair and clothes, and if I even tease taking the robe off, he's ready then and there. Thanks for the post and helping me think about this, because damn do we love each other, even in our sweaty work clothes or messy mom bun and leggings with loose shirt. So happy for my kids to see what real love is. I love my boyfriend. Physically, he's everything I could ever want in a man. Every time I see him naked, or even just in his boxers, I feel so excited in every way, and I just want to squeeze and kiss his belly. However, no one is perfect. I only said physically, so when he pisses me off, I refuse to look at him, because just one glance at his smile, his sleeping face, his belly, his thighs, his feet, his arms or his beard, and I fall back into mush. I can't let him get away with upsetting me, so I have to make sure to express how I feel before my judgment is clouded by how handsome he is. Had gone my whole teens without so much as anything close to sexual activity with a girl. Then in my junior year of college, I just decided to change my attitude to give off more confidence. Fake it till you make it. Immediately after that, a girl gave me a few blowjobs. Then 2 weeks later, have a date with my future wife. We see each other 3 days in a row. No sex or nudity. Then on the 4th day, go to pick her up, and she pulls me in the room and takes her clothes off. Holy, I've somehow managed to convince a girl to let me see her naked. Act like you've done this before, you twit. Great boobs. I knew I was going to marry her. It was our first date, and I didn't have the balls to make the big move despite all the game we had talked via text leading up to it. She got naked, my heart almost exploded, and then we had the best sex I've ever had in my life. That was 5 years ago. We've been married for 2 and have an 18-month-old son. She's my absolute best friend forever, and I still get a boner, drive nails into granite with every time I see her naked. Intrigued, for the first time in my life when getting naked with someone. Playfully curious. What if I trace the little brown freckles on his back? What if I stroke the outline of the muscle on his arms? What if I drag my fingers up and down his ribs and then on the outline of his spine? Does his mouth taste the same now as when he kissed me outside before? If I put his cock in my mouth, will it get more pink? More flushed? Will his cheeks? His chest? He was kind enough to let me explore. Man, I will only say this. I met my girlfriend last year. I was 22 and she 31. She's tall, 185 centimeters. Very gifted top and bottom. And boy did I finish at first touch. I only saw a girl like this in porn movies, man, and when we got down to business, I only touched the head, rubbing it, and I started shutting jizz everywhere. She makes fun of that every time she has the opportunity. Well, considering she was my longtime crush since high school, I felt like I won the mothering lottery, the World Cup, the World Series, the Super Bowl, the NBA Finals, the Indy 500, so on and so forth. I've since put a ring on her finger and a couple of babies inside that smoke show body of hers, so even better. The first few times, it was very exciting as expected, but then one day, we had taken a shower together before bed, and something just really clicked. She told me that she was going to put on some hydrating oil because she felt that her skin was dry. I said that I'd like to put it on for her, and she obliged. So in the quiet late night in warm cozy lighting, I sat as she stood in front of me with her hands resting on my shoulders. From there, took my time slowly massaging every square inch of her body in silence, taking in every detail that I'd never noticed before, twirling her around front and back whenever I needed, from her collarbones down her arms, chest, and over her belly, down in between her thighs, over hair and pubic area. I then had her sit on my lap so I could get her shins and toes. As she sat, I noticed the crease where her hips meets her thighs. I noticed how comfortably she let her legs hang. I felt how soft the cute little area under her belly button was. I fell in love with that cute little tummy in that moment, and how she held herself to me with her arm behind my neck and melted into me. The squish of her tights, the subtle overhang of her breasts, her slow calm breath, and strong steady heart. I stood her up in front of me again and ran my hands down her glistening waist to hair and just admired the beauty that is my woman. I felt her stretch marks. My hands were able to run smoothly over her body from the oil. I ran my hand down and over her breasts down to her tummy and back up again, pulling her closer from the small of her back. She sat down again and I massaged her hands down to her fingertips. I noticed even as she sat comfortably, she effortlessly retained her hourglass figure. I looked at her and she was bashfully smiling at me. When I looked into her beautiful blue-green doe eyes, I felt something or someone great looking back into me, looking at me full of love. It was in this moment I really realized that my girl is an absolute goddess, strong, soft, and athletic, kind, wise, and teeming with life. All I could do was kiss her and rest my forehead against her neck, and sigh with deep contentment. I wanted to cry, I felt so lucky. Few words were exchanged, and it was the most in love I'd ever felt at age 21. I thought about how I want to spend the rest of my life with her. I rest my hand on her tummy and she pressed hers on mine. I imagined having children with her, and I sensed she imagined the same. I kissed her, she kissed me with her palm running along my jawline. I stood up and carried her bridal style to her bedroom. We had to take rinse off in the shower again not too long after. Sophia, if you ever somehow stumble across this, ya boy loves you. Positively stunned. She dressed well, but when everything came off, it was like she was a Greek goddess carved from marble, perfect in every way. She, however, was coming off of a bad divorce, so when I saw her expression, I knew she wasn't as confident in her appearance despite being perfect. She was vulnerable and allowed herself to be completely vulnerable with me. As perfect as her form was, it was that trust she had in me that made her so much sexier. We've been together 14 years. There really is something about that. that makes the moment even better, isn't there? My first partner was really shy at first with being naked around me, and it really made me want to try to make her as comfortable as I could. It was even nicer seeing her grow into the partner that was having a hard time not being naked around me and jumping my bones due to the confidence she gained in herself and the relationship. She wasn't naked, but when I met my wife, it was a setup. A mutual friend insisted we had to meet. I was skeptical. We met at a hair salon. Weird, I know, but I had a bunch of friends who worked there and we'd hang out, drinks, food, etc. after hours on Wednesday nights. It was a thing. So I pull up, get out of my car, and I spotted her through the front window. I blurted out aloud, and my friend who set us up frantically asks, "What's wrong?" I was 100% convinced I had no shot. I had dated a lot of girls by this point, so I kind of knew my league. The girl sitting in the salon was entirely out of it. I started to get a little mad, kind of like, "Why did you set me up for this embarrassment?" My friend convinced me to go inside, and 20 years later, we're still happily married. The first time I saw her naked, I was in awe, just stupefied at how gorgeous she was. I don't know what I did to win her over, but I feel like the luckiest man in the world most days. She was my nursing assistant. I couldn't walk or talk because I had a brain tumor at 3 years ago. I asked her to dinner for taking care of me and came to the rehabs I was at and kissed her, and after a year, we are happy and doing amazing. I love her so much. She was in the army and became a nursing assistant and got her to go back to school, and she's doing great, and I'm doing great too. After 3 years, almost of 3 years, I can run again, and I'm healthy. I felt sweet ecstasy, on a level your brain can only produce for the right one. It was like the pieces finally connected on something that was always there yet was somehow always missing. My breath intensified as my heart freely throbbed among every inch of my body. It is like seeing an undiscovered color in heaven and trying to explain its meaning, texture, and feeling. It was fleeting. It was perfect. It was romantic and beautiful in all the ways that makes you long to discover more about our being and experience as humans. Truth is, the first time is the best time. I'm surprised by how few people were not immediately attracted to the person. Haven't you ever banged someone and been like, meh, they're fine in the dark? Like, I'm super pretty. I know, super pretty. I have mirrors, but I also know I look much better with my clothes on. I have loose skin from weight loss, and the only thing that's perky is my boobs. If I'm icked out, there's no way they're not judging me too. Or like when you get naked with a big ol' hairy dude, and you can't see his peen cause his belly is in the way. There's like love there, right? So you get turned on, but not that, hot damn, that's a sexy dude get in my belly feeling. It was in the dark, so I didn't see her body well. We were about to go all the way when we realized we didn't have a condom, so we just fooled around. In the darkness, I tried to get a good look at her boobs, but I could not quite see them. I freaked out because from what I saw in the dark, her nipples looked like men's nipples. The next day, I couldn't think straight. The thought of her nipples looking like a man's nipples started to bother me more and more. I was like, what if she's a dude? I mean, it's not impossible these days. I didn't see her for a week. I couldn't shake the thought of her, I don't know, being a dude, or maybe having malformed nipples. So I told a friend of mine about it and he went down 3 rabbit hole with me. The next time we met, I made sure to let plenty of light in the room. Turns out she had normal nipples. It was all a trick of the light. To be honest, I thought I couldn't do better because I had just gotten out of a toxic relationship and thought it was just a hookup. So did he. He was about 270 pounds when I met him, and this may be TMI, but he had a pretty small guy downstairs at the time. Now, 3.5 years later, he is still about the same weight, but it's more muscle. I'm not sure if the penis can grow after a lot of intimacy or if it's the fat loss, but now, his guy is about 6.5 inches erect. Now, I know what love is, because he takes care of me and helps me through my PTSD episodes without being irritated that it's happening again. He is also a lot more understanding of my Asperger's diagnosis than even my own parents and siblings.